It is our pleasure to be joined by the head coach of the Oklahoma Sooners. Jennie Baranczyk is in the house for her annual visit. What's up, coach? Welcome back.
I know. How are you guys?
Doing good.
Living the dream?
Women's basketball is making me feel better than men's basketball. We don't have to get into that, but hey, 16th
Oh,
ranked Sooners. I've been dialed in, coach. You guys have a very entertaining team again.
you know what? We do. And I don't know if I've ever been this excited this time of year when you've really had to grind through some things. You've really had to learn a lot of lessons. But dang, I'm really excited about the way this team's going to finish because I think we're becoming more of a team as time has gone on. We're kind of finding some things about ourselves. We're growing. We're young people that have fallen on our face. We're getting up, and I'm just really, really excited to see us go forward.
Yeah, you kind of I mean, the conference schedule is brutally tough. We know that. But it was kind of front loaded to a certain degree. And now you're gearing up for the home stretch and should be feeling pretty good about how you're starting to gel, right?
You mean because we played four top eight teams in the country
Yes.
in January? Yes. No, honestly, but that's why we're in the SEC. And sometimes especially as fans, we want to win yesterday. We do too as coaches, right? But we also understand there is process and it's different. It's extremely different. I knew it was going to be different. Um, but until you live it every day and until you really understand why and how it's different, you don't understand a team until you really scout a team and then you play them live. You can watch games on film, you can watch, games on TV, but you don't understand the feel you get when it's live is completely different. So being able to watch us kind of navigate that, it's the same as adding a Reagan Beers to our roster this year. It feels like it was an easy transition. You're like, oh, you have an inside post and but you have to live through it and you have to understand it and you have to learn how to play to each other's strengths. And so yeah, front loaded. Yeah, I think our non-conference was pretty good in terms of preparing us for different styles, but you have to also allow yourself to live it. You have to, experience is our best teacher. And so you have to experience those environments. You have to experience the talent. You have to experience what it is. So it doesn't even matter who you play or when you play or how you play. You have to show up every night.
Looking at that front loaded piece of the conference schedule, really, other than the South Carolina game,
Mhm.
it's been incredible. You guys have been incredibly competitive against all of those teams. Like, have you been encouraged? Like the coming back against LSU the way that you guys did. Have you been encouraged by what you've seen from your team when they went through that gauntlet?
Yeah, encourage. Yeah, that's a good word. It's probably a better word than maybe what I would definitely use, when you're in it. But at the same time, you want to be addicted to learning. You want to be addicted to growing, and you have to keep this 30,000-foot view while you're still in the weeds. And I think that's really hard for us as coaches to be able to do that. It's really hard for young people to do that, right? So I do feel like, we just won at Ole Miss, and it was a game, and we were down 7 in the fourth quarter, and we didn't have Reagan Beers, and we were able to win that game. And everybody asked me, "Did you need that? You really needed that. You needed that because you start to get into bracketology and you need this many quad ones and you need this many this and all this stuff." And to me, my response to that was, I can keep that 30,000-foot view, knowing that we were in these games, knowing that you go to South Carolina and it's 18,000 and it's a program that's incredibly established. It's players that are competing every day for a national championship. And so they're the elite of the elite. And then, life teaches you the next week and you got to go to LSU and there's 11,000 and it's game day and they're on Sports Center, and you do a little bit better. Right. And you have to go through and experience that. Like I can play loud music in practice. I can tell you exactly what South Carolina is going to be, but until you go and you live it, and then you go back and you look at the film and you say, look at the opportunities and look at what we could do. Um, and that's where our team is really wanting to get better. I think that's the encouragement, is that after that Ole Miss game, I can say I've had that wisdom to know that we're heading in the right direction. Like, yeah, you want to win every game and you want to be able to compete for conference championships. That's what we do at Oklahoma. You don't compete for a conference championship. Our fans aren't happy, regardless of where we're at in the process, where we're going, but yet our fans are really invested and they're really engaged. And so that's something that's really special about us, right? That Ole Miss game was a validation point for our team. That win was just a validation point. That win wasn't needed. We won it. That's where I think we're heading, where again, you go through in an Auburn game and you're up 10 most of the game and we just couldn't shut them out. We just couldn't quite, and then they make a run and then all of a sudden you're down one. Now, how do you manage an end of game? And we were able to finish that, with getting a score that we had to have, making free throws that we had to make, and then also getting a defensive stop that you have to have. So when you can keep that into perspective, not just, hey, let's celebrate the wins, let's figure out where we need to continue to grow, but also celebrate those little things that were able to get us there. Because then you're unhappy when you win and you're not just happy, you know what I mean? And so it's this cycle of emotion of happy or unhappy, whether you win or you lose, and you can't live like that. So that I think is where we're at. So yeah, I'm really encouraged. But also there's something really special about this team that we haven't quite tapped into yet.
Potentially dumb question coming from a football guy, but obviously you're playing a bunch of new teams, and you get a comfort whenever you're in a conference and the staff, how they typically coach their teams, and there's a bunch of carryover. But basketball wise, what's it like playing in a new gym? Like, just to go and you're playing in a new gym every time you go out on the road. Teams, they get better, they get worse. In the Big 12, you'd face a lot of good teams, but is there a level of comfort going into a gym that you're used to? I mean, does that ever factor in?
Well, here's the thing that's different. And you guys experience this with football, right? Like, SEC fans are different. So women's basketball on a national scale is on fire because of the environments. Obviously, Caitlin Clark effect, that. But also because of the environments that have been created by the South Carolinas and the LSUs who have won the national championship. So I'm telling you, we had some travel problems. We went out to dinner. Normally, you kind of stay in your hotel, you do your business thing. And we're at Mississippi State. And this is early on. And the number of people that knew why we were there, that were coming up to us constantly. There was a woman that came up to me and she's like, oh, my mother was from Iowa. You're from Iowa. Like, nobody knows that. Nobody even knows, in the Big 12, nobody cared if we went somewhere. The fans are very invested and understand. So even you're at Tennessee, we're at Tennessee and it's an icy day and there's 11,000 people. Here, today, everything's canceled. Everything was canceled yesterday for the potential of ice, right? And so, but there they still showed up. And it's, the history that is at Tennessee. And after the game, people are, wow, congrats. Like, nobody really comes in here and wins. And you guys, and you guys did. Like, now we have respect for you. And they understood the game. They understood what we were trying to do. I think that's different. Not that the Big 12 doesn't have the fans. They're not as invested in women's basketball as I feel like the SEC fans are. And you probably felt that same way in football. The difference from a schematic standpoint is we kind of experienced this last year when we were in the Big 12 and you had new teams. The systems in the Big 12, right? This team shoots the three a lot. So even if that kid's not on the scouting report, you're going to assume she can shoot a three. You're going to know she's not shooting it well right now, but she's torched us in the past. So we're not letting her be open, right? That you have to guard a post in a certain way. We didn't have size last year. So, there were times where we'd have, your constant double hail. Sometimes we'd be like, everybody go, get it out of her hands. You knew that this year, but you got to see last year, the teams that didn't know our players that maybe hadn't shot the ball well that lately, but they did a year ago, where the teams that knew you were going to guard her. Lexi Keys is a perfect example. Like Kansas State last year, they were going to guard her regardless of whether or not she was shooting a good percentage. The new teams might not guard her as much because they're playing percentages. So we don't have that history now with these teams. And so now you really see what people think. And also at the end of the day, it's so much less about playing against the systems and the styles and the way and the coaches' schemes. Players can just make plays. Like you got to be able to guard one-on-one. You can't constantly be in rotation. I think we've had to learn that. I mean, there's guards that are, I mean, you're going against pros and Olympians. That's a difference in a guard court. So yeah, the gym's different. The environment's completely different, but also the game is different. It's just a completely different game. Sorry, I promise I won't be this long in all of my answers.
No,
I feel
love
like
it.
I just
That's what we
learned
need to
so
hear.
much.
That's
So
what we want. That's the details that people are tuning in for.
possible dumb question from a football guy coming your way. You guys, I've always thought you brought a very aggressive offensive mentality. I feel like that's part of what you want to be as a coach and what you want your team to be. You guys, this season, you're one of the best teams in the country at sharing the basketball. What, top 5 in assists, I believe. How do you balance teaching your players, hey, we got to share the ball, but also teaching them to be aggressive? Like, what's that fine line between, hey, I want you to be aggressive, I want you to score the ball, but I also want you to share the ball and we need to move the thing? Like, what, how do you find that balance as a coach with the message that you're presenting to your players?
Well, one, you got to be aggressive constantly. I mean, your uniform deserves that, right? Like you have to, I don't care if it's a loose ball. I don't care if it's on offense. I don't care if it's on defense. You got to be really convicted to be able to go get it. And then also, I think the thing that separates us as Oklahomans, and I've learned a lot about our state history, right? And the resiliency in our state and understanding that teamwork has always been at the bottom of this. Oklahoma, even to get football to rise where football rose is because of the president of the university and because of the Board of Regents. And so we understand that it takes a team behind a team to be able to do it, right? So same thing in our offense. You have to be 100% about the uniform. So we have to take the open shot. So if we're not aggressive, if you don't drive to score, you're not going to get anybody open. If you don't pass to set somebody up, you're not going to get anybody else open. You're not going to be open. No one else can be open. So the thing that drives me crazy is when you talk about roles, right? Well, my role is a screener. Well, who the hell wants to just be a screener? You have to be able to be an offensive threat at all points, right? So your screening should get somebody open, but also you should get open. If 2 people go with one, then you're the open person. And so if you're the open person and you don't want to take that shot, that actually hurts the team. So we have the green light mentality. It's kind of like watching the Thunder. Like, look at how good the Thunder are right now. Like they're
Oh,
so
coach, if you want to talk Thunder, I'm with you. Let's do this.
but they're just a great example that's right up the street, and that's what we want to do, and you go back years and years of all the teams, and they had multiple players that were great that won championships. It's never one player that's going to shoot all of the time. It's never only 3 people. It's 3 consistent players, but you still have to have the element of threat. Otherwise, it's going to be 4 on 5 constantly. That's where I think that's what Reagan Beers brings to us. And that's a whole other story as well. But, when she draws a second defender, then somebody else is open. That's an assist. If she doesn't and one-on-one coverage, then that's an assist. So you constantly have to think. I think we've also had to shift the mindset of if it is one-on-one, you have to be able to score that. And so that's something that we've had to shift that. I think the mindset right now of young people, we're trying to teach resilience, but we're also trying to teach team. But in order to teach team, you have to show up every day. And you have to have that individual responsibility. And that's not always easy for everybody.
Yeah. Well, you've very subtly hinted at some frustrations that you have? What are I mean, we're in the stretch run here. What are the problem areas that you really want to iron out before you get into the postseason?
Yeah. I think the last post-game press conference I had after Auburn was the first time that our media had really seen me like that. And we have to learn to take care of the basketball. We have to value it. You have to do anything for it. And if you do anything for it, you do anything for your team. I want to see us be a better team because teams have to want to be teams and teams have to cover for each other. And I think that that's something that, this world that we're in right now is so individualized. And it's like, you have the NIL, you have the portal, you have all the same things that football deals with, right? Every sport, men's golf deals with it. Everybody's dealing with all of these things, right? And the outside conversation, whether it's, parents, coaches, fans, it doesn't matter, right? Outside, it can get to you and it can wear on you, but a team that can be a team that can really look and value each other and see, like, if you go into a game and you're like, man, the person to my right is pretty damn good and the person to my left is pretty damn good, and you know what, so am I. That's what you want. That's what you have to have. You can't go in saying, oh, I'm not good enough, and you can't go in saying, well, I'm better than the person to my right and my left. That's where we're at. We're kind of still measuring up. And then we have stupid turnovers because of it, right? Because it's like I'm coming in to prove instead of coming in to enhance our team. That's what we have to be able to do. We do that, and I promise you, like, we're going to go a really long way because we've got good talent, but we have the ability to be a great team. That's where we have to be able to live and die. We have to live together. We have to win together. We got to lose together. And we've got to really start to own it, because then you start cleaning up things and it's not so much about proving yourself. It's about pouring in. You can make up for mistakes that way so much easier.
It would be awfully helpful to the cause if you can get Reagan Beers back on the court. She's missed some time, been banged up. Maybe it's because of how much she gets fouled and the refs don't call it in the SEC for some reason. But don't comment, Coach. I don't want you to get in trouble. But what has she meant to this team? And then, what's kind of her outlook moving forward?
Well, obviously she's been incredible, and we've missed those, 18 to 20 paint points in the last couple.
Those are helpful. Those are helpful.
Right. They're very helpful. And I underestimated, and I'm gonna speak like very, very frank right now. And I underestimated her ability to come in and fit in. I knew she was going to be really good. We reinserted Liz Scott, who also is, posts up quite a bit for us and has a lot of production in the paint. And a year ago, we kind of fell on our face, and then we grew, and all of a sudden we win the Big 12 in more of a 5-out type of a style. So our movement, we had to move a lot more, right? Now you have Reagan inside, who is, such a paint presence, and people game plan for that. And so it's different. And I underestimated how long that would take us to really put it all together. So, and she was out a little bit in the fall, kind of during some crucial time in October. And so that's like your real grind time of like putting your team together, getting your chemistry together. And so she was out, and you can't just like plug in somebody for her, right? So it's not like you have 5 of her and you just plug somebody else in and you play off. That's the one thing that's challenging about our offense, is that you play to individual strengths, because it's more of like motions and reads. And so it looks different with every substitution. And yet that's what's really challenging for people to guard when you do that, because it's hard to scout, because you're making those reads and you're picking them apart when you get to where you really want to get to. And I underestimated how hard that would be. I underestimated the emotional toll that it would take on players, like a Skylar Van coming back as player of the year and having that expectation of having to do that, of, Peyton Verhulst trying to kind of put everything together. I underestimated the 5th-year seniors of being able to come back and still be as hungry and lead 18-year-olds when they're 23 and 24. There's a big difference in emotional immaturity. And so the outside hanging out together is a little bit different. And And so I underestimated a lot of that. And we're really good people. Like, gosh, we got like, I mean, we all have problems, but we have this amazing group of women that I'm like, God, just see it, just see it, just see it. And they're working through it, and they can't always see their value in it. And then and right now they're taught so much to look externally for their value when you have to look internally for your value. And the only, we answer to one and that's it. But right now our young people are taught to answer to 15 people pulling them in different directions. And so I underestimated that. I underestimated being more in a spotlight on a national level, because we got so much more attention, and you're ranked in the top 10 at some points in the season. Because then people like to comment on it. And it's not like comments are always like, man, you guys are really good and you're growing, right? That's not the comments that we get to read and that they read or that they remember. Some people do fill them with really good things, but you can't believe the good and you can't believe the bad, right? And so you have to literally just show up every day. I underestimated how hard that would be for us, but I also am looking at us authentically actually growing, talking about that, failing, falling on our face, and being able to kind of just start to roll up our sleeves and kind of work a little bit more. So that's why, to me, I'm really excited about the next month and a half for us, because if we can really start to authentically do that, because you can't just go do a ropes course and now you got good teamwork. You can't just go talk about an issue and all of a sudden now everything's fine. You can't just give a good speech, a motivational speech to say, yeah, I believe in you, and now we're confident. Like, it doesn't work that way. You got to work through it, and you have to fail. And so I think I've talked more about failure this year, because in the games we have really good moments, but we haven't gotten the wins that we've wanted. And so therefore you got to learn winning's not enough. It's never going to be enough. So how you do it and the process of it is where we're at in this fourth year. So Reagan means a lot, but you got that answer.
Yeah, that was great stuff. Tell us a little bit about what you got coming up, going on the road to Missouri, then you got Vanderbilt at home. You got 3 out of your remaining 5 are on the road. So how important is it to be able to go out there and get some of those wins?
Well, it's important for us to get better. It's important for us to still, we hope we do get Reagan back. I'm hopeful that she'll get to play in the next game. We don't know that yet. That hasn't been confirmed. But we have to get better, and we have to really gel together, and you have different combinations in. We have to learn to play to each other's strengths, and we have to learn to show up every day. So it doesn't matter if you're at home. It doesn't matter if you're on the road. I mean, we've played in the toughest environments in the country. So we can say that we've been there, we've done that, we've performed somewhat well in some, somewhat not well in some. So if you take those lessons and you go, I mean, you're going to go to an SEC tournament that's in South Carolina, there's fans. It's going to be packed. So you got to just continue to learn, and you got to get better. I think if we can keep our focus there, then everything takes care of itself. The winning always takes care of itself. The scoreboard always tells the story it's supposed to tell. We just don't always like it. But we got to learn from it, and you got to look in the mirror first. So we do that. And I'm telling you, like, the next time when we talk, you're going to want to talk to this team, because you're going to want to follow this team.
I know. Do you guys talk about having your eyes on a top 4 seed? Like, is that part of the conversation? Like, because the top four seeds host regionals. I know that's something that you would love to do, but is that a discussion you have with your team, or is it the, hey, focus one game at a time mentality?
Right now we're at a focus every day mentality, not even one game. It's not, we're not going to prep for Missouri in practice today. Today we're going to go against ourselves, and we're going to go against the game of basketball, and then you have your time and place that you go and you prepare for Missouri, which we will on Friday and Saturday. But right now, we don't need to talk about it. We already know. It's not like it's not everywhere. So it's not something that you can't play for a seed. You got to play so the winning finds you. You got to play together. We have to, it's funny. I went over to YFAC last night, and my 7-year-old is playing basketball. And so it's fun. Go watch, first grade basketball, and fun and awful, right? It's challenging. But
Perfect way of putting it.
yeah, it's amazing, And so if you don't laugh, you'll cry, right? So I kind of feel the same way. about our team some days. But you're watching just guys playing pickup, right? And you're just watching the rec league play, and you just do stupid stuff in rec league, right? You like throw something and you see it. But like, one of the best compliments you can get is sometimes your team looks like old man rec league because they're just playing and they're having fun and they're, what I mean? And they're just making reads, and that's one of the best compliments that you can get, because the Thunder can look like, I mean, obviously Shea's elite. That doesn't look like old man rec league, but you're just reading and you're passing and you're playing and you're, and then all of a sudden your level elevates because you're having fun playing. This is the same thing that we need to do. And so it's not about the seed. I think the seed will take care of itself. Now, I'll tell you what, it was really challenging a year ago getting a 5 seed and having to play at Indiana. And when you felt like you should have had a 4 and playing at home. And then when you lose in the last minute of the game, that's tough. So, you want that, no question. And I think we also, the more that we can do that, the more that we can grow our fan base here, because we got to do that. If we're going to compete in the SEC conference, and it's football too, and it's every sport here, we got to just grow that passion, that we know we're in the process. We know it, and we need our fans to be part of it, because we want to be the best for our fans that we can possibly be. We can't just keep asking from them to show up and do this, and then we don't give. We have to be able to continue to give. Like, we've got to give to them. We've got to give them a good product. Obviously, we want them to feel really good when they leave. And that's something that we've got to obviously continue to work on. But that is the difference. So if we do get that 4 seed, we really have to really sell at this place, and we have to play really well for them.
I think you pointing out some of the differences in playing in this conference has been really cool. Does that maybe better prepare you guys for postseason play, playing in some of those pressure situations and those environments, or is that, just kind of a postseason is what it is?
I don't know that answer, but I do know the history of the SEC teams do well postseason and get a lot of teams in the tournament and have had a lot of upsets and win national championships. So I would imagine that prepares you, when you go, and I mean, you have to play the best to know that you can. And you can do all you want saying that, but when you go to play at South Carolina and fall on your face, the next time you're probably not going to fall on your face as hard. So that is so much better to have that experience in January than March, where it ends your season. So that's where I feel like the answer can only be yes, it will prepare us more, but I don't know that yet because we haven't experienced it.
Coach, this was awesome. All of you listening, go out and support this team. Got 2 home games left against Vanderbilt and then Senior Day versus Alabama. This was awesome. I feel like I always, every time we have you on, I feel like I need to take notes because you're just you're instilling wisdom.
How to turn it over.
Stuff down.
Coach, you're the best. I appreciate you.
No, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Boomer.